I'm very clear. It's a British, Indian, Punjabi, female point of view of what happened to my family, why that happened at that time in 1947. I tried very hard to make it a balanced film. I tried very hard not to misrepresent anybody. पता नहीं अचानक एक गोरिया ने कोई काला जादू कीता साडे ऊपर. Now I'm be able to tell her, show her the film and say, हाँ, तुसी ठीक कह रही सी, Mum, you were right. एक कालू जादू कीता सी गोरिया ने. सत श्री अकाल जी, मैं गुरिंदर चड्ढा हूँ and तुसी देख रहे हो Bollywood Hungama.
Fatma Bhutto, she was rather critical of the
Yes.
film, but at the same time, you've also said that there have been many Pakistanis in Britain. They've come up to you and they've thanked you for just telling them about their history because they didn't know much about their history. So how do you look at this dichotomy? Because there will always be people who will have certain viewpoints which is different from what you have, and there will be people who wouldn't want maybe a different context to come into the picture because it suits them that they continue the similar context because it adds to their political atmosphere. Right?
Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head. The point is, this is a sad period in a lot of people's history. A lot of people would rather forget about it, and a lot of people would rather see it from different perspectives.
Right.
For me, this is my perspective. I'm very clear. It's a British, Indian, Punjabi, female point of view of what happened to my family, why that happened at that time in 1947. I can totally appreciate and understand Pakistanis from Pakistan, might have a different perspective, I can appreciate Indians having a different perspective. And it's a very sensitive subject. People get very upset about it, and so everyone has their right to be upset. Everyone has their right to be angry. It's part of the territory, For me, I tried very hard to make it a balanced film. I tried very hard not to misrepresent anybody. I wanted to lay the facts down, show the political leaders what the discussions were between them all, and show the agendas beyond what people might have known was going on, and see the impact of that of the ordinary people working at Viceroy's house, the ordinary Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs working in Rashtrapati Bhavan at that time, of course, was known as Viceroy's house.
Absolutely.
So what I have done, which I'm very pleased about, is generate debate. The debate of the issue is important because most people around the world, it'll be shocking to hear this, but most people around the world don't even know that India was partitioned. They have no knowledge of that history. In Britain, people are coming up to me going, what? I didn't even know this happened, and I thought I knew about Britain and Indian history. In Australia, people were shocked because they had no idea that this is what happened in the last days of the Raj, and being part of the Commonwealth, they also had a lot of interest in the subject. But also in Australia, I found out that once the British had decided to leave, they were leaving in droves before independence. So there was nobody left to look after India. There was no police, there was no boundary, there was very few people because ships were going back. So a lot of Australians were shipped in those last few months.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, as Air Force men, and I met a woman in Sydney who'd come to see the film, and then after she invited me back to her house, and she had all this memorabilia of her at school in India in 1947, and all the flags that were waving. You can see this on my Facebook page, actually.
I'll do that.
You do that. And then she talked about how her father was head of the Indian Air Force at that time, or very senior, as an Australian, and he spent all his time doing mercy missions, taking Muslims that side of the border, bringing Hindus and Sikhs from that side of the border here. So he just did 20, 30 flights a day going back and forth. So this is a part of Australian history as well. So for me, it's great to have been able to make a film where people actually know what actually happened. But for us as Indians, and particularly those who were affected by partition, directly or personally, like I was or am, You know, I think
Your
there's...
grandmother, I believe...
Yeah, my grandmother was in Jhelum, and overnight, you know, she saw a lot of violence, and they said, you have to leave. And she said, मैं किथे जाऊंगी, सरदार जी आएंगे तो मैं जाऊंगी. Meaning, you know, I can't leave. Yeah, my husband will come and then I'll go. I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And then one day an army truck came. They said, now, in the truck. So she had 6 children with her at the time, young kids. They just all got picked up, put on a truck. They managed to grab a little bit of wheat, I think, and she managed to grab a little bit of jewelry, and they left. And they were for 3 days on the road without any food and water. They couldn't stop in Amritsar because there was cholera. They wouldn't let people off the trains in all these places near the border because there was nowhere, nothing, no food, nothing. It was also the rainy season, so it was a lot of disease. So in the end, after 3 days of no food and water, the little girl, she died of starvation. You know, my bua, who would have been 72 today. So my family really did suffer, and all my uncles and aunts are still traumatized by what they saw at that time. So it's a personal film for me, as well as a political film. But now I know what happened, the truth. You know, I feel I have some closure. Because my mother grew up in Rawalpindi, and the other history that I had been told by her was that ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਬੜੇ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਈਦ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਠਿਆਈ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਗੁਰਪੁਰਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਠਿਆਈ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਦੀਵਾਲੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਮਨਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ. ਸੋ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਨਾਲ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ. ਅਸੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਅਚਾਨਕ ਇਹ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਕਾਲਾ ਜਾਦੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਪਰ, ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ, ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪਤਾ ਜੇ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ. So that was the other thing my mother had always said to us. And so now I'm be able to tell her, show her the film and say, हाँ, तुसी ठीक कह रही सी, Mum, you were right. ਇਹ ਕਾਲੂ ਜਾਦੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਗੋਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ.
Absolutely.